Lucky for me, I've been in my pajamas all day. I haven't had to walk around a expo floor, cross the streets, and all that stuff. We've been here behind our computer doing the entire digital experience with the Consumer Electronics Show, and it's been kind of weird. If y'all are following my Twitter, appreciate y'all very much. I've been posting updates and whatnot over there as I'm going through the day and as I'm learning different things, and just giving you guys kind of a feel of what it's like to be at a digital expo, which is kind of, I don't know if this is going to be the new norm or what, but it's really weird. But today we actually went and saw two different keynotes from two very prominent manufacturers. And we also went and talked to a couple of different people at the digital booths, per se. And actually it was three. We'll throw that third one in there at the end. I didn't take any notes on that one. But it was a pretty cool experience. It was different. I'm used to, going down, sitting at the expo or the presentation hall and like watching stuff. But, I got to sit here from my comfort of my home and drinking coffee and doing real work during this while everything's going on. So it was pretty cool, little interesting thing. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about what I did with Consumer Electronics Show 2021 Day 2. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the keynotes. And that first one we're going to talk about is going to be the AMD keynote. This happened at about, I think it was 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. It might have been later. I don't remember. It might have been 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. That probably sounds better. But basically, we had a lot of hopes going into that keynote address. We've been looking at all of the different GPU releases coming up. We're hot off the press with the Ryzen 5000 series CPUs. So there's been a lot of momentum coming into AMD's camp going into 2021. And we have been promised lots of different products from AMD. And unfortunately, they announced some of them, they teased others, and they didn't, at least during the keynote, announce much else, which is kind of a disappointment. But I have a feeling, and I've got some feelers out there to my AMD contact, that I think Computex is where they're going to be bringing the hammer down, and they're going to be bringing all the other fun stuff. So let's talk about the AMD keynote. So we do have our screen here with all of our different YouTube videos. We're going to be referencing different time codes. I'll be posting those on the timeline here on the YouTube, as well as down in the description below when I highlight this over at Twitch. We are streaming live to my Twitch channel right now, twitch.tv/theturk. Appreciate everyone in chat hanging out with us on this Tuesday night. It's January the 22nd, January 12th, sorry. But let's talk about the AMD keynote. I do have some time codes for all of this fun stuff. And the first thing AMD did, let's take a step back. My impressions of the AMD keynote was very disappointed. We were hoping to see a lot of cool products get announced, seeing a bunch of cool numbers and stuff on the screen. And we just really didn't get a lot of that. We got a few cool product announcements. We got a little teases, and I don't know. I feel kind of disappointed with the AMD announcement. But let's talk through it and walk through the different time codes about all the different stuff that happened. And here at 2015, this is where they actually start to introduce some of their newest products. The first, third of the video is basically them just talking about their different, laptop products that are coming out, and they're teasing basically the announcement of their newest processor lines from their, I need to mute the tabs, that way we don't get DMCA striked. But basically they went and talked about all their different new processors. And here at 2015, we finally get to see the 5800U. This is the latest and greatest Zen 3 based CPU for the mobile market. They don't talk a lot about the different APU aspects of this. Again, I'm trying to get more information from my AMD contact. But basically, the 5800U is going to be based off of the Zen 3 core. It's going to boost up to 4.4 gigahertz, which is really good, especially for, I think this is a 35 watt part. Again, we'll post some specifics down in the description. But basically, it is a pretty decent offering. And what's really interesting is they're comparing these processors against the 11th gen. Granted, some of the part definitions in the laptop space are really ambiguous. So like Core i7 1185G7, that might be a 10th gen part, or it might be their, I think it's like their Ice Cove or something. I'm not too familiar with all the code names. But let's not confuse it, and we'll be rehashing this same statement throughout the night. These are not their desktop processors. These are their laptop processors. So you can't really compare a 5800 against a 5800U. It's not a fair comparison. But anyways, what we do see here is that we've got basically the 5800U is doing a fantastic job on a laptop perspective, doing some of these different kind of synthetic benchmarks. PC Mark 10 DCC, we get 18%. Video encoding through Adobe Premiere. I'm not exactly sure how they're collecting that data. Excuse me, but they are getting 44%. And then PC Mark 10 applications. This is one of those tests I'd like to do just to get my sanity check. But the percent difference isn't all that much, but PC Mark itself is not a very useful benchmark for me, at least, especially like the applications benchmark. It's kind of dumb. And then Blender with 3D ray tracing is pretty cool. I like it a lot. But then here we go into a little further in. They boast about the 5800U's battery life, up to 17.5 hours, which is pretty dang good. If you've watched our day one coverage where we talk about the Intel keynote that was yesterday, basically, they also posted some pretty impressive battery life numbers as well. And these are actually very comparable to those Intel numbers. So I'm really proud to say that, at least according to the text we see on the screen, they are pretty close to one another. Granted, general use could be different for all sorts of different things. They don't tell us explicitly here what general use means. So I'm optimistic. You know, different battery sizes, different laptop designs could impact that number itself, but you know, at least it gets us in the ballpark. So now we go to time code 2243 of the CES keynote, and we finally get to see the HX series processors. These are basically going to be AMD's approach to migrating from a laptop power-based offering to a more performance-based offering, and trying to enable some of these gaming laptops to squeeze out as much of the performance that they leave on the die when they're going through sort, and trying to beef up the performance metrics, which I think is a great idea. Especially at some of these laptops, they've got, you know, really huge fan curves and stuff. If you're talking like the Alienware G15, it's got the big fans going in the back. You know, there could be some laptops that would be really great for cooling. And then icing on the cake here, these are overclockable, guys. I've got some questions going out to AMD, trying to see like what they mean by overclocking. Are we going to actually get like voltage control through the UEFIs like we would on a desktop? Do we just get the multiplier checks? Is this Precision Boost Overdrive 2.0? It's like, what kind of overclock is going on here? You know, so there could be a lot of other funny business going on when it comes to this definition, and I'm trying to get some clarity through my contacts. But from a performance perspective, I think it's a pretty good start. Looking here at the left here, we got Cinebench R20. This is the single-threaded performance benchmark, and they are boasting a 13% improvement to the 10980 HK, which is the previous, I don't think it's the 11th gen cores. This is the 10th gen cores. So they're getting pretty decent single-threaded performance there. I haven't run the Passmark benchmark for the CPU much at all, so I can't really quantify how good of a 35% improvement is there. But then it's like, okay, game physics performance. That itself is very misleading. The game physics score is pretty much ignored by anyone that's doing any gaming benchmarking. It's really kind of there just to show that, yeah, your processor's doing pretty good and it's able to scale really well. So the number looks good, but it doesn't really mean much to me. So there's going to be a couple different variants of this. I don't know if we've got that on the screen here. There's going to be, Yeah, there it is. I didn't get the time code for it. But this is at 2155. There's going to be at least 2 of these. Again, there's more put into the press material that went out ahead of schedule. But there's going to be the 59HX and the 5980HX, which I find is very weird numbering scheme because it kind of looks a lot like the Intel part numbers, to be honest. You got the 10980HK versus the 5980HX. I don't know if AMD is just trying to confuse everyone that's trying to buy a laptop, but basically we've got 4.6 gigahertz boost with the 5900HX, and then we've got a 4.8 gigahertz boost clock on the 5980. Both of these are 45 watts. Again, what does that mean? Usually when you're stating your TDPs, at least with processors and whatnot, there's a specific definition of what your TDP means, and then you go and throw a plus sign next to it. It's really confusing as to what that actually means. So just something to keep in mind going forward. They're probably getting pretty loose with their definition of TDP, and there's probably some other software going on in the background to kind of optimize power delivery and whatnot. Which brings up the question, where is Smart Shift in all this? Back last year, this was one of those features that was heavily acclaimed as being one of the great features coming into AMD-based laptops if you're going to go with an AMD CPU and an AMD GPU. So like, how does that play into all this? So we'll have to see more about that, which unfortunately, we didn't hear anything about the laptop GPUs, which I was really sad to see because, you know, we saw like the Navi 12 last year with the 5700M. That got into a few laptops. There weren't that many because, let's be honest, the Nvidia GPUs are just really hard to beat. But we didn't hear anything about any laptop GPUs. They did mention, and we'll get into some of this here now, they teased a whole bunch of products coming out at the later half of this year. I think it's the time code. I'm trying to get to it real quick. 50. That's not the right time code. 5009. What the heck is the time code 5009? 5009 is like the end of the video. What was I thinking? Sorry, we're going to have to scrub a little bit through this. One thing that I was not a fan of in this presentation was all of the padding. They had a bunch of interviews with the different vendors that they teamed up with and partnered with. You know, they had a good, 5 to 10 minute discussion with, Microsoft, which it was kind of weird seeing that, you would spend that much time of your keynote speech just talking to a partner. But then they also talked to their F1 partnership and how their computing solutions help bolster their performance as well as their brand. So it was just like a lot of extra stuff was put into this presentation. Hey, Candy, what's up, girl? How you doing? We are just talking tech stuff. We got CES 2021. We're talking about day 2 stuff here. Going to post this to the old YouTube. Hope you're having a good one. But here we're going. We're talking about some of the Radeon GPU announcements, and she's trying to build us up. Dr. Lisa Su here is trying to build us up on what they were able to deliver last year in terms of their architectures and their performance, and they actually go and show us some of the performance from the laptops that they're working on. I appreciate the alert. Thank you very much, girl. And then here they go. They throw it out on the screen. They're teasing us here. Laptops with RDNA 2 based GPUs, as well as a dual fan RDNA 2 GPU and a single fan GPU. Guys, I think these are going to be our 6700 XTs, 6700s. This even looks to me to be like a 6500 XT, which, if y'all have watched some of my videos about performance predictions going forward, I thought it would be super awesome if AMD came up with a 75 watt TGP total graphics power graphics card, because everyone's rocking like 1050 Ti's and stuff that's really old. Man, if they had a Navi 2 with that was super efficient that you could just throw into your HTPC. I've got my PlayStation 2 I could throw it in. There's all sorts of cool little gaming boxes you could throw that in. So we did get teased on laptop GPUs as well as lower end mainstream based GPUs coming from AMD first half of 2021. When is that? Is that going to be in March? We've heard lots of rumors of it being in March. We've also heard April, and first half of 2021 is like June, guys. That's when it ends. So I'm not too optimistic here. At least they've got some product pictures. They kind of know what it looks like, but we'll just have to wait and see. And the other thing, I don't have the time code for it as well, but for the laptops, they're also going to be shipping in the first half of this year as well. So overall, I've got kind of mixed feelings regarding the AMD keynote. It was cool to see some of the laptop stuff they've got coming out. Really good to see that their processors are doing really well. They're efficient. They've got great battery life. But guys, we wanted to hear about Threadripper. We wanted to hear about RDNA 2. We wanted to hear about all this other stuff, and they just didn't announce it. They showed us some teasers for their Epic series, their Milan series CPUs as well, which is really cool. But it's like, we, as consumers, we were really hoping to see AMD continuing to stick it to Nvidia and sticking it to Intel. And I just don't think they delivered that what do we call that, not motivation, but the momentum. There we go. We got the word finally. We were hoping that they were going to get that momentum going into the first half of this year, and just, it kind of fell flat in my ears. Let me know down below in the comments or here in chat. We are streaming this to Twitch. So, but on the flip side, and if y'all saw the thumbnail to this video, Nvidia, immediately after this presentation, they had their own little special event. Nvidia is not a exhibitor for the CES show, but they did host their own little presentation keynote speech of their own. It was literally right after the show with AMD ended. And guys, I was super excited with what we saw from Nvidia. As you guys know, I've done a lot of NVIDIA testing in the past. We've got RTX 2080 Super data, RTX 3080 data, and I really am a proponent of ray tracing, DLSS, and all the different features that are built into the Ampere GPU lineup. And call me an NVIDIA shill if you want, but I do believe ray tracing is the bee's knees. I've been playing Cyberpunk for almost 15 hours now with ray tracing turned on, and it just looks phenomenal. And here we go. We're going to start talking about their press conference. And right at the top, they have a nice little gameplay intro of all the different games that are showing ray tracing turned on. And then at 1934 in the video, I'll put all these links to these videos down in the description. That way y'all can go and watch these at your leisure. We got some pretty cool information coming, guys. Let's throw it on here. Granted, I was wondering where our fearless leader was. I don't know who this guy is. I'll have to look it up and post it in the description as well. But guys, DLSS is coming to Warzone. Holy cow. I've got a bunch of friends that like to play Warzone. We have a bunch of benchmarks here on the channel with the RTX 3080, 2080 Super. We're finally going to be getting DLSS 2.0 onto Call of Duty Warzone. I'm kind of hoping that it also trickles into the mainstream, not the mainstream, the main campaign, the single player, the multiplayer versions, and not just the Battle Royale version. But this is super huge, guys. If you've got an RTX 2060 or better, you'll be able to just go into your menus and just turn the slider up or on, and you will get access to increased frame rates and maybe even increased digital fidelity with the DLSS feature. So super pumped about that. If you've got a cool monitor with it as well, you can hopefully turn on your adaptive refresh rates and all that stuff. So DLSS is coming to Warzone. They also announced a bunch of other cool games that are going to be getting DLSS. Five Nights at Freddy's. This is a huge game. I've loved watching the MatPat videos about it and the Game Theorists. And the newest game coming out from them, Scott Coffin, I think, Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach is going to have both ray tracing and DLSS turned on. They do have a little sneak peek here for us to watch. We're not going to watch it really here, but if you're not familiar with Five Nights at Freddy's, it is a horror game based off of kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese-esque kind of thing. It's going to be super cool to see all of this in like ray tracing. Granted, this is not really looks like a standard typical Five Nights at Freddy's scene right there. That looks more similar to what we should be looking at. So kind of interested to see how that turns out. We'll have to look at it also when that releases. So, hey, NCV, what's up, man? Welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a great day, man. We're just talking Consumer Electronics Show 2021, Day 2. So the next big thing that they announced at the NVIDIA press conference is the inclusion of a couple new games to the NVIDIA Reflex. This is going to be at time code 2431. One thing I actually like about the NVIDIA press conference here is they actually put chapters in for all the different segments of their videos. So I'm actually trying to pull the time codes of the actual instance where they're putting the different games. But if you're not familiar, NVIDIA Reflex is their API hooks for different video games to tie in directly into the driver in order to reduce some of the latency load that's implicated when you're trying to use your devices as well as your graphic settings and whatnot. And, you know, guys, y'all watch me play games all the time. Valorant's on there, Call of Duty's on there, Apex Legends is on there. There's all sorts of competitive games that are really itching for low latency, high fidelity, and they're going to be adding a couple new games, Rainbow Six Siege and Overwatch. I like Overwatch. I love Overwatch, actually. I haven't played it in a while. And then Rainbow Six Siege. These are both games that are highly competitive. They've got their own, professional leagues even that are going on. So it's good to see that these two games are also going to be getting the feature turned on in them. I'm kind of curious if Overwatch 2 is also going to be getting the feature as well. I think it will be, because my understanding is Overwatch 2 is almost like an expansion pack of Overwatch, and you can kind of cross-play a little bit, but we don't need to get into it here. But what I found interesting came up right after this is they're actually launching 5 new monitors or display panels that have their Reflex Latency Analyzer. If you've watched some of the videos from Linus Tech Tips, they've actually gone and implemented some of the hardware measuring features to actually detect and calculate and quantify the entire system latency. I hope y'all can see that on the screen. The entire system latency of your performance. So they actually record the frames per second, the render present latency. That's like how long it takes the frame to actually come to your screen. The render latency is just how long it takes the GPU to actually produce the frame that's going to be presented. And then it talks about your mouse latency, how much latency is going from the GPU to the monitor. All of this stuff is actually being measured through the monitor panel, and these 5 new monitors that are coming out on the market are going to have this feature. And I'm not a very competitive guy. I'm not at least this high of a competitive person. But there's some 360 hertz, oh my goodness, 360 hertz panels, 180 hertz widescreens that are going to be getting these features. And if you're into esports and you follow a bunch of teams, I could probably bet you that they're going to be getting sponsored by NVIDIA in order to throw some of these monitors out there and see what they look like from a real-time perspective, because I think they even said it in the convention thing is these types of metrics are like monitoring your heartbeat when you're playing football or something. And I don't think it's that crazy, but it's interesting to see just how low level and analytical we're starting to get. We also saw that kind of at the F1 component to the AMD presentation as well. But guys, y'all weren't here to see all that extra fluff. Well, I hope you're here to see that Warzone's getting DLSS 2.0. But guys, AMD, Nvidia is launching the RTX 3060. Now, I've got some, what's the right word for this? I've got some, not issues, but I've got some concerns when it comes to the perceived performance that's going to be coming out of these graphics cards. So here on the screen is what they showed us what the performance should look like. And they're basing everything basically off the GTX 1060. That was a very popular card back in the day. It's pretty decent for 1080p. And then they've been trying to keep that 60 line of all their graphics cards being kind of their mid-range, early entry mid-range graphics card. And what I find troubling is they're basing all of these numbers based off of the 1060. This is a really old graphics card, wasn't really known for having super high-end performance and stuff, but they're using it as like their baseline. So then they also post here in light gray, I hope y'all can see my cursor, but they've got Total War, Three Kingdoms, Division 2, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Watchdog Legions, Fortnite, Cyberpunk. All of these games are pretty common in their chart decks and stuff, but they're showing, sorry, I just got a message from Deadly Dad Gaming. Hey, Turk, what do you think about the AMD keynote speech? I thought it was a huge fluff piece for AMD to show off and not really any substance. 100% agree. When this goes out, you can check out the VOD. We talked about the AMD stuff earlier. I'll post the time codes down in the description. But yeah, you are right on the money. I was not impressed by the AMD press release. And that's why we are talking a lot about NVIDIA's, because I thought NVIDIA's press release, it gave us what I wanted to see was updates from what games are going to be using their feature set. And then, it's always good to see additional graphics cards getting announced, but then I really like their laptop stuff. We'll get to that here in just a minute. But here's my performance issues I have with this chart. So we've got the RTX 2060. It's not the RTX 2060 Super. It's not the RTX 2060 KO. It's just the 2060. And is that the 6 gig? I think that's the right memory usage for the 2060. There might be a 3 gig version. Or is the GTX 1060, is this the 3 gig version? We don't know. There's a lot of confusion in the air here on which graphics card this is actually looking at. And then coupling that together, they have these green little notches here telling us that they're running with ray tracing and DLSS turned on. There's a whole bunch of different options that go into, quote, ray tracing and DLSS. Which DLSS mode are you running? Are you running DLSS ultra performance mode? Are you running just balanced? Especially with like Cyberpunk, there's like 5 different settings of which DLSS you could be running. So, and what's even more troublesome is it's like your RTX 2060, they don't post the ray tracing with DLSS numbers on that. They don't tell us that this is what the 2060 is for raw rendering. So what are we doing here? If we got an RTX 2060 and we turn on our ray tracing and DLSS, do we get 50? Do we get, for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, do we go from 60 FPS to like 68? So I'm really concerned with the actual performance we are going to be getting from the RTX 3060. And why don't you just go ahead and get the RTX 3060 Ti? It's already been released. And maybe that's why I'm really confused, because later in the video, I think I got the timestamp. It's 2716. No, we're already past that. There we go. This is what I think is the biggest thing of confusion. Running with all ultra settings, yep. But that's also a very nebulous term. All ultra settings is not every game has ultra settings. Some are high, some are very high. So it's like, what is ultra? So we'll have to test it and see what the thing is. But here's where I'm getting confused. So it's going to be $330, which I think is a really great price. But it's going to have 12 gigabytes of GDDR6. Now, if you go back and look at the 3060 Ti, I I think it's 8 gigabytes of RAM, and it's GDDR6 as well, but it's using a wider bit interface instead of, I think, this one I think is using 192, and the 3060 Ti is using 256. So it's like, on the one hand, you're getting more memory, but it's going to be slower. You're getting more teraflops due to the frequency of the chip, but you're also getting less CUDA cores. So it's like, this card seems to be misplaced. I'm almost confused as to why it's here. Because you could just price your 3060 Ti, instead of at $400, price it at $360, and you'd be done. So I'm really curious what their play is here. And then also, in the grand scheme of things, we were supposed to be hearing about 3080 Ti's, 3080 Supers, 3070 Supers. There was a whole another set of product announcements that we were supposed to be seeing, and we just didn't hear about them. So I'm really curious what NVIDIA's got lined up, but at least this is a shot in the right direction towards AMD saying, hey, this is what we've got. Why don't you show us what you've got so we can kind of see where we're going to be for Computex. So, yep, I'm right there with you, Multi-Kill. I agree. I'm kind of confused why this 3060's here. Yeah, and they probably, Deadly Dad, they probably do have a bunch of die that's looking for a card to be installed on. So yeah, maybe they're just trying to get rid of inventory. Yeah, who knows? Maybe that's something for Red Gaming Tech and Moore's Law is Dead to figure out. So here's the last thing that I thought was really cool but confusing about this entire NVIDIA press release was their laptops. Holy cow, dude. They're going to be putting out the RTX 3060, 3070, and 3080 into a laptop-based variant. It's going to be running obviously their second generation RTX cores, and it's going to be using also their second generation Tensor cores, and then their third evolution of the Max-Q technology, which they go into depth about talking about some of the stuff that's built into this. One thing that I saw was really cool. This graphic is just kind of like their visual representation of it. But basically, their Dynamic Boost 2.0, that's a timecode 3102, it's kind of similar to AMD's Smart Shift technology, where the system controller itself kind of measures what the voltages and currents look like for the CPU, looks at the voltages and currents of the GPU, as well as the power that's going through the memory modules, and it tries to optimize things in order to boost the GPU and GPU memory much higher, so you get even more improved performance out of your machine. And I think that's really cool, and I'm really curious with just how well it integrates with different processors, as well as, the different graphics cards they got coming out. Yeah, I'm really excited about these laptops, and we are going to be talking about that here in a second, the actual individual laptops. They also talk about the resizable bar. If y'all are familiar with some of the AMD technologies, I think it's called SMART or SAM, the Smart Address Memory or whatever. Basically, NVIDIA is going to be implementing it as well. They are using the more open source terminology for it. It is a feature of the PCI SIG spec, so they're just enabling it across their board for their stuff. So, that's cool to see that they're going to be adding additional functionality into these laptops. And I think Hardware Canucks even mentioned that this is a great instance of where this would be a good thing, because squeezing extra performance out of a compact device is an extra cool thing. So here's where the laptops, I think, kind of break down for me. We've got all sorts of cool laptops getting introduced. This is where he's actually talking about the different laptop types and what their target frequencies and resolutions are going to be for each of these graphics cards. And I've got some really big issues with these next three slides, because it's one thing to say from a desktop what type of FPS you're going to be getting, because you can go in and control the processor you're plugging it in against. You can also control the memory you're plugging in and all sorts of different variables and stuff. But inside of a laptop, we are heavily constrained as to what fits in size of this small form factor. And what's even more worrisome here is the performance claims. So for the RTX 3060, this is based off of, or the sample picture here is the Lenovo Legion Slim 7. I'm not exactly sure how new this particular laptop is. I did some searches on this stuff, and some of these laptops have been in existence in previous generations. So I'm curious where these FPS numbers are coming from. Again, going back to that concern of what processors powering these graphics cards. But 1.3 times the performance of a PlayStation 5. How on earth did they get those numbers? I know we've done it here on the channel, and I think if you check out the top right there, we actually talk about it in great detail about how I went in and kind of tried to figure out what kind of graphics card you need to get it to look like a PlayStation 5. But to think that they know the exact specific performance metric that it's going to be 1.3 times the PlayStation 5 is kind of absurd almost, because if these are going to be 1080p gaming machines, a 1080p 120 FPS is the target performance metric for the PlayStation. So if you're going to be getting 120 FPS at 1080p, 30%, let's do a quick calculator. I don't like doing math on the fly. You guys know me. So if you've got 120 FPS at 1.3, that's 150 frames per second. But they're only shooting for 90? That doesn't make sense. If it was 4K, I could understand that, because the target frame rate with upscaling with the PlayStation 5 is supposed to be 60, but even then, the numbers don't add up. So 60 times 1.3, it's 78 frames per second. So it's like, for the RTX 3060 in a laptop, I don't get where they're getting these numbers. It doesn't make sense to me. What they're basing it off of just doesn't make sense. So I definitely going to want to see if I can try and get my hands on one of these. I'm trying to talk to some of these other vendors here at CES to see if I can get my foot in the door at least. But overall, oh yeah, and the other claim here is that it's going to be better than the RTX 2080. Going back to our original conversations tonight, this is the RTX 2080 laptop version. When I heard it was going to be better than the 2080 Super, I was like, what? How are you going to be better than a desktop graphics card in this small of a power footprint as well as form factor? I was just like, yeah, I can't back up these numbers either. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But it's what they've said in the video. I'm hoping that other outlets as well as myself can keep NVIDIA accountable. But at least they've got some numbers out there, and we can compare it against other stuff. That price point, $1,000, it seems a little steep, but going with the latest and greatest GPU is going to cost you. But then again, we could talk about it in the next one. Let's go to the next laptop. This is going to be the RTX 3070. These are going to be aiming at 1440p gameplay, which I think is a great resolution for gaming, at least on a 27-inch monitor. Have you guys gamed on a 1440p monitor that's only 17 inches large? It's going to be really, really small. It's going to be, you're going to have to be super duper close to the screen. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. They also mentioned earlier in the video that people hook up external monitors and stuff. So, maybe it's, I don't know. One thing to keep in mind. I thought it was an actually good value for a modern video card. Yeah, I think $1,000 is a pretty decent, modern laptop, brand new tech and everything. I think it's a pretty good starting point. It'll be interesting to see what the different vendors come up with for pricing and all this. But this is the RTX 3070 laptops. This is going to be right at $1,300. I could definitely see the price increase going from $1,000 to $1,300. That extra $300, that kind of seems kind of on par with what we're seeing with some of the desktop CPUs or GPUs going from a 3070 to a 3080. There's definitely a price jump. So, you know, you get the added surcharge of, you know, convenience of the form factor, you get the power stuff as well, and you're also probably getting a higher end processor out of this as well. So I think at $1,300 is actually a really good deal, considering the increased resolution of the monitor, the increased everything going into it. So I think the price is good here. But again, this 90 FPS Ultra at 1440p, is that reasonable? Because 1440p is a really difficult resolution to play at. I can play on my 2080 Super. What game is it called? It's called Cyberpunk 2077. I can't get 70 FPS, even with DLSS turned on. So it's like, is this 90 FPS raw? Is this with DLSS? Is it with DLSS in ultra performance mode? There's a whole bunch of caveats to this FPS number that I think are disingenuous from Nvidia. And then they also claiming that it's 1.5 times faster than the RTX 2070. I don't think I don't think I have that chart here. I don't think the RTX 2070 to the 3070 was supposed to be 1.5 times faster. So again, these are really bold performance claims. I'm really interested to see where they came up with these numbers and how that goes. The Asus G15 is the representative laptop here. Again, I tried to find the G15 spec. What I found that was interesting, and again, they don't list what all the rest of the parts are in these laptops. Asus is really pushing a bunch of AMD processors out here. So it's going to be really interesting to see the dynamic of these new laptop models as they're starting to pick and choose the different types of components they're picking. That's a lot of P's in one sentence. But again, it's just so awesome to see all of this cool new tech going into this small form factor and seeing how much performance we can push out of it. And then last but not least is going to be the RTX 3080. We've got that sample data here. I think they show it a little later. Nope, there it is. That's the Alienware M15. You know, Alienware is well known for putting all sorts of different processors and stuff into their laptops. So it doesn't surprise me that they don't list it here. It's going to be $2,000. Holy cow. That's a pretty big price. But you're only getting 10 more FPS out of it, guys. Don't worry about this. I'm really concerned about these performance numbers. I just don't know where they're pulling these things from. So I think it's really cool. Alienware makes some pretty decent high-end laptops. We'll just have to wait and see. But what I found interesting about this particular laptop in general with this particular graphics card is actually the use with portable rendering machines, because you know, you can't just go to CES in a normal time frame and just bring just a standard Ultrabook, because it's not going to be powerful enough to render your 4K videos and all that stuff. Having now gone through a few days of CES, I can definitely appreciate how much raw computing power you need to produce videos and stuff. This might be why you get these $2,000 plus laptops, because this is straight up performance, man. It's hard to compete against that number. I really wish they would have provided these metrics for the other different graphics cards as well. But I gotta say, guys, the Nvidia press release, the keynote that they put out, was far more impressive than I think I just lost my headphones. I really think it was really much more impressive than the AMD press release. And I'm just kind of curious if AMD is kind of just like sitting back trying to see if they can glean more information from Nvidia regarding their graphics card stack, so they don't push too much cool stuff out there and let them change their stuff. I don't know. There might definitely be some business kind of stuff going on here. Oh, Candy, see you later. Appreciate you coming by. But yeah, guys, I really think the Nvidia release was really cool. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the AMD keynote as well as the Nvidia keynote. We're going to keep going with this stream here on Twitch. I am going to end this YouTube stream here. So make sure you guys hit the subscribe button down below and make sure you hit the bell icon too. I'm going to try and get a day 3 out tomorrow as well, but we'll have to see how everything pans out. But appreciate you guys coming by. Hope you'll have a great night. Take care, Turk Force.